Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed my tutorial videos for 12 Realms the game. I got the game set up for a 3-player game, playing the cooperative mode, not playing with a dark player, just showing the cooperative mode of the game. We do have 3 heroes. We have the Sugar Plum Fairy, we have Robin Hood, and we have the Nutcracker who are going to try to save the realms of the Silver Kingdom, the Fairy Forest, and the Cherry Blossom Realm from these evil dark overlords who are trying to destroy the realms. Everything is set up. We just need to figure out exactly where we want our heroes to go, and we need to get our starting talent so we're ready to start saving the realms from these invaders. The best thing we need to do is figure out exactly which realm is going to be best for each one of our heroes to start in, so they can start working together to start saving these realms. We basically look at the Silver Kingdom and see that the treasures and the artifacts are going to take courage, or the ability to charm, and money to find. We can come over here to the Fairy Forest and see that you're going to need magic for the treasures and money to try to find their first artifact. And we come to the Cherry Blossom Kingdom, we're going to see that we need knowledge to get the treasures, and we need swiftness to try to find the very first artifact. Well, starting right off, we know Robin Hood is the only hero who starts with the ability, the talent of knowledge, so we know he has the best chances to hunt down those treasures. We come over here to the Sugar Plum Fairy, that we see that she has magic, she has the ability to charm, and she also has the ability to get money that she needs to use if she can't get any from defeating creatures. So probably be best to start her in this area, you would think, except for the fact that we notice that the Silver Kingdom requires the ability to charm or courage to get treasures, which is something the Nutcracker does not possess at all. So we're actually going to put the Sugar Plum Fairy in the Silver Kingdom, and we're going to let the Nutcracker start in the Fairy Forest, where at least their magical power can help them get some of the treasures, and we're now ready to begin. The very first phase of every single round is the invasion phase, and the first thing we need to do is we need to update any of the invasion markers if there happens to be any invaders on any of the boards. And at the start of the game, that never happens, so you can bypass that. The next thing is any special powers of any invaders on the board are going to take effect, and again, we don't have any invaders, so the next thing we need to do is we need to start adding invaders to the board. So to do this, we need to draw the amount of cards from the realm decks based on the amount of realms that are currently in play, plus 1. So since we're playing a 3-realm game, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So that means we need to draw 7 cards from the realm deck, and we need to figure out exactly everywhere we're going to put every one of these cards, whether they happen to be treasures, whether they happen to be artifacts, or whether they happen to be invaders. We just need to get the matching tokens and place them on the board in their affiliated realms based on the roll of the die. So starting with the very first card we drew, we need to figure out exactly where this this artifact token is going to go on its affiliated realm. And this is the number 1 artifact. Remember, we already have another artifact out because the board does start with it. Simply roll the die. We're going to get a 3. And this artifact is going to go in area 3 of the Silver Realm. Next thing we need to figure out is we need to figure out exactly where in Cherry Blossom Realm this invader is going to go. So we're going to roll the die. We're going to get a 4. We're going to stick this invader in area 4. The next invader we're going to add to the board are going to be the Tanuki, who are going to appear in the Cherry Blossom Land because that is the realm they're affiliated with. And remember, this is a horde creature, so every time we add 1 Tanuki to the board, he's going to bring a couple friends. That amount of friends is listed, so we're going to have to add 3 tokens to the board in Area 3 in the Cherry Blossom Land. So I'm going to simply add those to the board. The next thing we got is a Valkyrie, who's going to appear in the Silver Kingdom. We're going to roll a 2, so the Valkyrie is going to come here pretty much in the same area as that treasure, which is pretty good for us because that means it's another target for us to attack while we go after that treasure. The next thing we got is we got 4 mouse soldiers because, again, this is a horde creature. It's going to add to the board with 3 of its best friends in the Silver Kingdom. We're going to roll a 6, so we need to add 4 mouse guards to the Silver Kingdom, who looks like thematically they're protecting one of the artifacts for their Dark Overlord. Next thing we have is we have a Black Knight. We're going to roll a 3. This Black Knight is also going to be protecting this artifact. Looks like we got a very thematic start to go for. And then finally, we have a treasure chest in the Cherry Kingdom, which is going to go over to Area 1 with that other treasure. So it looks like we have a very interesting start for our heroes, and it looks like the Nutcracker is going to be using his power very early in the game, especially if we start seeing that we're starting to be overrun by all these invaders. So now that we're done with placing all the invaders on the board, we're done with the invasion phase. It's now time for our heroes to act and try to start destroying these invaders before they take over the realms. We're going to start with the Sugar Plum Fairy, then with Robin Hood, and finally the Nutcracker will be our 3rd hero to go. On our turn, there's a couple of different actions we can do, and they're all listed on the player boards. If you ever forget, the first thing we can do is we can exploit swiftness to move from our current area to any adjoining area. The next thing we can do is if we happen to be in an area currently with a city or with one of these special kind of buildings, we can interact with that location, get cards from the respective decks, or we can interact with invaders, or we can interact with treasures and artifacts that are currently on the board by exploiting our talents and trying to acquire or defeat those things. And finally, if we happen to be currently in a city, we can go ahead and leave that city in that realm and appear in another city in a different realm. But that does end our turn, using up any talents we don't have exploited yet, and then that's going to end our turn. And then finally, we can always just end our turn anytime we want by refreshing all of our spent talents and calling the end of our turn. Right out the gate, the Sugar Plum Fairy has a really tough decision right at the start of the game. The Sugar Plum Fairy does start with 1 gold, which means she could spend 1 swiftness, visit the town and draw 2 cards, and hopefully she's going to get at least 1 card that only takes 1 gold to spend to acquire whatever that may be. While that may be good on the surface and give us some extra powers right in the beginning of the game, knowledge about knowing the game lets you know that anytime you have 2 gold or more, you have a better chance of getting some better rewards. So using that thought process, what we're going to do as the Sugar Plum Fairy is we're going to exploit 1 movement, and we're going to go ahead and move into area number 1. Then we're going to go ahead and exploit some of our courage to interact with this treasure, which is going to allow us to recover this treasure for our heroes, which is going to give us 1 gold, which is going to stack with our other gold that we use to visit towns or buildings on the realm boards. And we still have some talents to exploit, so we're going to go ahead and spend 1 more talent, and we're going to go ahead and move into the next area. And unfortunately, since we don't have the courage or the charm to go ahead and try to acquire this final treasure or the ability to combat this Valkyrie, what we're going to do is we're going to exploit our final swiftness token to go ahead and move into area number 5, where that building currently is, where we happen to have 1 gold talent which we can spend, plus a gold from the treasure we recovered that we're going to use to visit the inn to purchase a card, and hopefully it's going to be a good card that's going to give us some really good special abilities. We're going to go ahead and find a guild thief inside the inn who's going to offer and join our heroes in their effort to try to defeat these Dark Lords who are trying to overthrow the realms. Now, as long as we don't use the Aegis power of the guild thief, he's going to give us a permanent extra knowledge talent that we can use, and we can actually have access to it right now, and that's going to help us for the rest of the game as long as we have that guild thief working for us. Additionally, the guild thief has a very nice Aegis power, which we might actually want to go ahead and burn right here and right now. Because the Aegis power for the guild thief states that if we use that guild thief and we send him off on his merry way to help our adventurers on their journey to try to defeat these bad guys, he's going to go out there and pickpocket all the invaders who are currently in the same realm with us, and he's going to go ahead and bring that gold back to us. But unfortunately, that's going to wear him out, and he's going to be removed from the game because we found him inside an inn, and any cards we get from the inn, the stables, or the bazaar are removed from the game once we burn their Aegis power. And I have to admit that's extremely tempting to do right now because we currently have 1, 2, plus 4 for a total of 6 invaders currently in our realm. So if we go ahead and burn him for his Aegis power, we're going to get 6 gold, which we can spend right here and now because we happen to still be in the inn. So we're going to go ahead and use the guild thief, thank him for his wonderful services, and helping our adventurers to defeat these evil dark overlords trying to destroy our realms. And we're going to gain 6 gold, and we're immediately going to spend 2 of those gold to draw another card from the inn deck, and we're going to end up getting a Priestess of Freya. Now, the Priestess of Freya, as long as we have her part of our party, part of our journey trying to defeat these evil bad guys, she's going to give us extra courage and the extra ability to charm our enemies to try to defeat them to save the realms. So that's going to be another talent that we can actually have access to immediately, and we can actually start using it, which is unfortunate because we're not in the same area with the treasure anymore, and that's unfortunate. And there's also an extra Aegis power on the Priestess of Freya, which if we discard this card, we can make it so every single invader currently in the same realm with us, and remember, invaders are not the same as Dark Overlords, so these special cards don't work on the Dark Overlords, but they definitely work on the invaders. And basically what it'll make is every single invader currently in the realm with us for this round alone will be defeated by the ability to use courage or charm, which means that this Valkyrie will go from a combat and knowledge to a single charm. This Dark Knight goes from 2 combat to a single charm. And every one of these rats will go to 1 charm only, which isn't that big of a deal since charming and courage already defeats them. The Sugar Plum Fairy is feeling pretty rich and pretty darn lucky right now, so we're going to go ahead and spend some more gold to go ahead and bribe the barkeep to see if he can give us some more extra knowledge to help us save the realms. And we're going to go ahead and find out that there's a silver knight in the inn who's willing to help us try to defeat all these villains in the realms. He's going to lend his services to our hero for the rest of the game as long as we keep that silver knight working for us to help us defeat the bad guys. Finally, the Sugar Plum Fairy decides to buy one more round for the rest of the inn to see what else kind of help she can get to defeat these dark bad guys. And after she throws out another round of drinks for everybody, a mighty wizard of Atlantis decides to join her group in their efforts to defeat the dark overlords trying to destroy the realms. And he says he's going to offer his magical talents to our hero to try to save the lands. That's all the Sugar Plum Fairy can do on her turn. Admittedly, it's been a very good turn for her. It's given her lots of extra power to deal with lots of things in her realm. But unfortunately, she didn't take out any of the invaders, so the invasion track is going to start creeping up very, very quickly, which is going to mean that the other players need to do something to help her out to make sure the invasion track does not start skyrocketing. Next up, Robin Hood gets to take his turn. He's going to go ahead and exploit one swiftness token to go ahead and move into Area 2 of the Cherry Blossom realm. Then he's going to go ahead and exploit his knowledge to try to figure out how to find a treasure which has been hidden in the Cherry Blossom realms. He's going to exploit his knowledge and he's going to go ahead and gain a gold, which is Robin Hood's thing. He likes to get gold, just like the classic Robin Hood of old. We're then going to go ahead and exploit some more swiftness in our efforts to find some more gold that may be hidden across the Cherry realms. Unfortunately, we don't have any knowledge, but we do have our grand leadership, which is going to help us find out where the gold happens to be hidden in the Cherry realms. We're going to use that knowledge to gain one more gold, and then we're going to decide that we're going to go on a magical journey into area number 2 in the Cherry Blossom lands, where we're going to go ahead and visit a bazaar and see if our 2 gold can help us get some extra resources. We're going to go ahead and spend our 2 gold and we're going to visit the bazaar. We're going to draw the top card of the bazaar stack and we are going to get a berserker axe, which we're going to add as a weapon that Robin Hood can use while he has his bow slung across his back. The berserker axe is actually a very unique weapon because it doesn't actually give us any extra talents. What it does is it allows us to basically do a berserker fury, much like a classic berserker from fantasy. Every time we use a combat talent to try to defeat an invader, we're going to refresh 1 swiftness and 1 combat, which can allow us to start traveling lots of places across many areas, defeating our enemies. Granted, it's only usable once per turn, but that is going to give us the ability to start traveling further, much like a very rageful berserker. There isn't much left for Robin Hood to do, so Robin Hood's going to end their turn, and we now go to the Nutcracker, who realizes that he needs to start helping his fellow heroes to clear out some of these bad guys before these realms get quickly overrun. Because remember, once we get to 7 in any one of these realms, the black castles are going to enter play. Finally, we come to the Nutcracker, who's going to start off his turn using a special ability. Now granted, we could stay in our own realm right here and start trying to work on getting these treasures, but there's not really that much we can do in this realm, especially when we see that other realms are in danger. And one mistake you don't want to make in 12 realms is thinking that you need to hover in your own realm and not help out your fellow heroes in other realms, because you're going to get blindsided very quickly and quickly lose the game. Because remember, it just takes 1 realm to reach level 20 for all of our heroes to lose. So the first thing we're going to do as the Nutcracker is we're going to exploit our magic, which is going to allow us to use our special ability. It allows us to teleport to any other realm in any area of our choice, and we don't have to end our turn to do that, because again, that's the special ability of the Nutcracker. We're going to go ahead and land in the Silver Kingdom in this area with all these mouse guards. And the first thing we're going to do is once we get there is we're going to pull out our mighty sword and start defeating these mice that are causing so many problems in the Silver Kingdom. Unfortunately, we don't have any combat prowess left to help us to defeat any more of these mice, so we're going to go ahead and spend 1 swiftness token to move over 1 area, spend a secondary swiftness token to move over 1 more area, then we're going to spend our final swiftness token to enter the city and travel back to the Fairy Kingdom. That is the first round for all of our heroes. All their talents are going to refresh, so they're ready to be used on the next turn. And that's going to end the complete first round, and we now get to move on to the second round, starting with the Invader Phase. The first thing we need to do is we need to update the invasion track for every single realm, for any realm that currently has invaders currently in it. So starting with the Silver Kingdom, we see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 invaders currently in it. So the invasion track is going to move up to level 4. We come over to the Fairy Kingdom, we see there's no invaders there. And finally we come to the Cherry Blossom Kingdom, where we see there's also 4 invaders currently in the kingdom. So the track is going to move up to level 4. And now we're done with the invasion track, and now we need to see if any of our invaders or Dark Lords currently in play have any special powers that are going to affect their respective realms. Luckily right now we don't have any of that going on, So we can bypass that phase. It's now time to start drawing realm cards so we can start adding more invaders and more treasures to every single one of these realms. So remember, we're going to draw the amount of cards based on the amount of realms times 2 plus 1. So it's a 3-realm game, so that means we need to make sure we're drawing 7 cards onto the board. And then we're going to add every one of these creatures, every one of these treasures, every one of these artifacts onto every one of the realms, as always respecting the affiliation of every one of these cards. So now that we've drawn our 7 realm cards, we see that we are going to have a lot of challenges coming out to us this round. We see that we have 1 Petrified Dwarf, we have 1 Petrified Goblin, which makes them much more difficult to defeat. We also see that we have a Sprite who's going to be entering the board, who as soon as we defeat, we're going to gain a gold for defeating him. And we also have this Petrified Dwarf, who if we also defeat, we're going to gain a gold. And we also have the Dryad, who has the power to shapeshift, and every time we encounter her, we're going to roll the die to see exactly what current vulnerability the Dryad currently has, and that's going to change every time she's encountered, making her much more difficult. So starting with the Petrified Dwarf, we're going to figure out exactly where in the kingdom he's going to go. He's going to go into Area 6 on the kingdom board, which is right down here with the rest. Oops, actually, that is going to be right here. If I would have moved the dice, I would have saw that pretty darn easily. So that's a Petrified Dwarf, which means he takes twice as much to defeat. And I always like to keep cards that have a reward when you defeat them off to the side so you don't forget about the rewards on them. Because remember, these little tokens don't always list the rewards you get for defeating these creatures, but it is listed on the card, so as a nice friendly reminder, I like to leave these cards out so I don't forget. The next thing we have is we have the Tanuki, which is also a horde creature, don't forget. So he's going to bring a couple friends with him over into Area 3 onto the board, which means we now have a lot of Tanuki in this area. We better start taking care of those. Luckily, we have our nice Berserker Axe, which should help us. Next thing we have is we have a golden cup, which is going to appear in the fairy realm over here in Area 3, letting our hero know that he has some treasures to start going after. Next thing we have is we have a Dryad who's going to appear in Area 2. So that's going to give us a target we can go for as the Nutcracker. Next thing we have is we have a Kitsune, which is going to go in Area 3, meaning Area 3 is starting to fill up with a lot of bad guys very, very quickly. If we don't take care of this, we have a total of 8 bad guys in this realm. And don't forget, that means that Black Castle is going to be coming out very, very quickly. We have a Sprite who's going to come out over here in area number 6, along with this artifact, giving us extra reason to go there. And we'll keep that card out to the side since they also give us a gold when we happen to defeat them. And then finally, we have this Petrified Goblin. Now remember, when petrified creatures appear that have the swarm power, their swarm helpers do not have the petrified power. It's only the main guy who has the petrified power. So we need to grab 2 regular goblins along with a petrified goblin, and they're all going to appear over here in Area 1 with this treasure that they're protecting. It's now the Sugar Plum Fairy's turn, and she's in a little bit of a predicament because there's 3 invaders on the board that she cannot defeat alone without the help of our other heroes, or unless she gets some extra powers by visiting some of these buildings or going back to town. Unfortunately, she only has 1 gold, so the only thing she can do is go back to town. So we know we can't defeat the Valkyrie, who requires knowledge and combat skill. We don't have knowledge. We can't defeat the Black Knight, who requires lots of combat skill. We only have 1 combat talent to exploit. We do have the rats we can take care of. We can't visit the inn because we only have 1 gold. We can't defeat the dwarf because he's petrified, so it takes 2 swords or 2 gold to defeat the Petrified Dwarf. So it looks like pretty much the only thing we can do, since we want to keep the invasion down as much as possible, is we're going to go ahead and exploit 1 swiftness token. We're going to go over here to visit this area right here, and we're going to defeat one of the mouse invaders, which is going to require us to use one of our swords to defeat one of the mouse invaders. We're then going to use our charm to defeat the second mouse by charming him into leaving us alone and leaving this realm alone. Then we're going to use some swiftness to travel back into Area 5, use some more swiftness to travel all the way over here, where we're finally going to courageously recover this treasure from the bad guys, gaining us a little bit of money. So now we're going to have 2 gold, which hopefully will be enough to defeat the dwarf on the next round. Unfortunately, it does mean that we're not going to be able to do anything else on our turn. That does end the Sugar Plum Fairy's turn. It's now for Robin Hood's turn to try to do some more things to start saving this realm, which is quickly being overrun. So Robin Hood realizes that for his turn, he needs to start clearing out some of these invaders. Otherwise, that invasion track is going to start skyrocketing way faster than we can take care of things and save the realms for the invaders. So we're going to go ahead and exploit 1 swiftness token, which will allow us to move over 1 area. And then we're going to go ahead and use 1 combat to defeat one of these guardians, one of these invaders currently in the area. And remember, since we have the Berserker Axe, anytime we use a combat, the first time we use it in a round, we get to refresh one permanent combat and one permanent swiftness. So now we're going to turn around and immediately reuse our combat to defeat another one of these guardians. And then we don't have any more swords to use, and we can only use the Berserker Axe once per round. So we're going to rely on our knowledge on the weaknesses of these Kitsune to go ahead and defeat one of the Kitsune. And then finally, we're going to rely on our cunning to go ahead and defeat one more of these guardians who are invading our realm. Unfortunately, we can't do much else to take care of any of these invaders, so we're going to go ahead and spend one more swiftness to move up to this area. So at least on the next turn, we can start off our turn taking out this Kitsune and start going after any other invaders that are going to appear on our next turn. We're done with Robin Hood's turn. It's now to start the Nutcracker's turn. The Nutcracker for their turn has a couple different options. He can go after the Dryad and hope the luck of the dice is going to be in his favor, and hopefully he's not going to roll a knowledge or even a magic, because we're going to need our magic here in just a moment to try to defeat this Dryad. Or we can hedge our bets and not go after the fickleness of fate and go ahead and spend one swiftness to move over into this realm here, spend 2 more swiftness to defeat this petrified goblin right here, who requires twice as much as it's listed, and list 1 swiftness token, so we can spend 2 to defeat him, and then we can spend our 1 magic to activate our special ability to travel to another realm, appear here, confront the Black Knight, defeat him, and remove his evil blight from the realms. That's everything our heroes can do on this turn. It's now time for all of our heroes to refresh all their talents, and we can go ahead and start the next round, starting with the Invader's Phase for the next round. So looking at every one of our invasion boards, we see that the Silver Kingdom currently has 2 invaders still in it, so we're going to go from a 4 to a 6. Pretty soon that Black Castle is going to be appearing, so we have to be very, very careful. We're going to go to the Fairy Kingdom, where we see we have 1 Dryad, 2 more Goblins, and we also have a Sprite for a total of 4 creatures, putting the invasion track currently at 4. And then finally we're going to come to the Cherry Blossom Kingdom, where we have 3 invaders, plus 1 more here, which is a total of 4, bringing us from 4 all the way to 8, which means the very first Black Castle is going to enter one of our realms, and it's going to land in Area 3, which is probably the worst place it could have landed for our heroes, because that means these 3 creatures are now protected. They're now inside the Black Castle, and I don't have the ability to destroy that Black Castle. But it's not all hopeless, because I do believe I have a plan. So now we need to draw our realm cards. Remember, we're going to be drawing 7 realm cards, amount of realms times 2, plus 1. So we're going to get a total of 7 realm cards, and we're going to get some more invaders entering realms, and it looks like we're even going to get 1 more petrified invader, meaning things are going to get much more difficult for us, because I am now seeing 2 petrified invaders. And now it's time to figure out exactly where our invaders are going to start showing up. Well, it looks like this Black Knight did not learn his lesson the first time the Nutcracker decided to defeat him, so he has re-entered our realms to try to cause us some problems. The Crown of Thorns is going to enter the Fairy Kingdom in area number 4, which is 1 more of the artifacts we need to finally defeat the final villain. The Fairy Kingdom has also managed to attract the attention of a magical petrified gnome, who is going to be in the same area as that artifact that we need for our final boss whenever they appear. The next thing we have is the Kappa, who we don't have to roll for, because unfortunately the very first Black Fortress has appeared, and they're going to hide out in the Black Fortress, protected from our hero Robin Hood. Next thing we have is the Mouse Soldier. 1 is petrified, the other 3 are not. They're going to end up in area number 5, which happens to be the same area as the inn. So that gives us enough reason to go back to the inn and maybe smack them around just a little bit. Next thing we got is the Goblins. They're going to appear in area number 2, which is going to be the same area as the Dryad there. And then finally, we have a gnome, who may be a good target for us, because he's going to give us some gold if we manage to defeat him. All the realms have been stockpiled for this round. It's now time to move on to our hero phase. The Sugar Plum Fairy, for her turn, realizes that the lack of knowledge about her lands is the only thing holding her back from defeating all these bad guys. So she's going to go ahead and spend 1 swiftness. She's going to move over here to area 5, where these mice happen to be. And the first thing she's going to do is she's going to mightily swing her sword to defeat one of these mouse guards. Then she's going to use a little bit of charm and persuasion to convince one of them to leave. And then finally, she's going to courageously defeat the final mouse guard. Finally, what she's going to do is she's going to go ahead and visit the inn 1 more time, and hopefully she's going to get some resources that are going to help her from visiting the inn. She's going to visit the inn, and she's going to find a golden knight who offers to lend his services to try to help our heroes defeat all these villains attacking our lands. She has a couple of things she can do now, and this has actually changed some of the decisions we can make. Because the Sugar Plum Fairy is now the only hero who is powerful enough to take out the black fortresses, which require either 3 swords or 3 magic to bombard with magic and completely destroy. So instead of staying in this realm right here, we're going to go ahead and exploit 1 movement token. We're going to move over here. We're going to exploit our mighty combat prowess to defeat this Petrified Dwarf. Remember, he takes twice as much to defeat, but luckily when we defeat him, he's going to go ahead and release 1 gold coin to us as our reward for defeating this horrible, horrible denizen of the lands. And then finally, the Sugar Plum Fairy is going to exploit her final swiftness token to move back into the town area, which is going to allow her to move to a different area as long as she's willing to exploit all of her remaining talents. Now, you would think that may be a good idea to move to this town, but we actually do have a better plan right now. So instead of that, we're going to move over here to the Fairy Kingdom, where we can start using all of our magic to start gathering all these treasures and possibly start taking out some of these bad guys. Robin Hood's turn is going to be pretty quick because he's going to hope for the help of one of his other heroes to help him save the Cherry Blossom Kingdom. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to exploit his knowledge about the weaknesses of the Kitsune to go ahead and defeat that Kitsune, removing it from the board. Because remember, it's not in the castle, and they don't move to the castle if they're already on the board. It's just any creatures added afterwards will always appear in the castle. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to exploit one of our swiftness tokens to go ahead and move into this land that the castle happens to be. Unfortunately, we're not powerful enough to storm the castle and tear it down to save the Cherry Blossom lands. So we're actually going to end our turn, and we're going to move over to the Nutcracker player, who's going to do a little bit of assisting to help us take out this dark castle. The first thing the Nutcracker is going to do is he's going to exploit the Talent of Magic to use his special ability, which is allow him to travel to another land. He's going to arrive over in this land right here, and then the next thing he's going to do is he's going to challenge the Black Castle and defeat it. And the nice thing about doing any kind of challenges is anytime you do a challenge, any heroes that happen to be in the exact same area as you, they can assist you, they can become allies in your challenge. So the Nutcracker player starts invading the castle, and Robin Hood's going to assist them. So the first thing the Nutcracker does is they're going to exploit 2 combat talents, and then Robin Hood is going to exploit 1 combat talent to go ahead and take out this Black Castle, removing it from the game. Because remember, once Black Castles are defeated, they are removed from the game. You don't have to worry about them ever coming back into the game. And since we used our Berserker Axe, that means we're going to regain 1 of our combat talents. We're also going to regain 1 of our swiftness talents, and the Nutcracker player still has their turn, and they can still institute some challenges and have some assistance from their ally Robin Hood, as both of them merrily travel around this area defeating the bad guys. Next, the Nutcracker is going to go ahead and challenge this Kappa with the assistance of Robin Hood. They're going to go ahead and defeat it through some combat abilities, and it's defeated and removed from the board. And the next thing that the Nutcracker is going to do, he's going to challenge the next Kappa, again with the assistance of Robin Hood, who's going to use his cunning to defeat the next Kappa, removing it from the board, meaning that things aren't looking so desperate for our heroes because there's only 4 invaders left on the board. The Nutcracker has a little bit of movement left. He's going to go ahead and use 1 movement to move 1 area. Then he's going to use a second movement to move to a secondary area where we're finally going to exploit our final movement token to go on a quest to recover 1 of the artifacts we need to defeat that dark invader. That's the end of the round for all of our heroes. All their powers are going to reset. All their talents, I should say, are going to reset so they can use them on the next round. And the next thing we need to do is start the next round, starting with the Invader Phase, starting with the invasion tracks. We just need to count up how many invaders are in every single area. The Silver Kingdom currently has 3 invaders in it, so we're going to go from a 6 to a 9. And since we passed the Black Fortress spot, the Black Fortress is going to appear in Area 4 on the board, which is not too bad for us because we don't have any invaders there yet. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to raise this track by 1, 2, plus 3 is 5, plus 3 more is 8, plus 1 more is 9. So we're going to go from a 4 all the way up to 13, which is definitely not good for the Fairy Kingdom. The final Black Castle is going to come out in Area 2, which is probably not the best area for us, but at least it's not as bad as it could be. And then finally, the Cherry Kingdom is going to go up by 4 points, going from 8 all the way up to 12. And you can see how things are starting to get very challenging for our heroes already. Next thing we need to look at is see if any of the invaders currently on the board have any powers that are going to affect our heroes. None of them do. So the next thing we need to do is we need to draw invasion cards. Remember, it's going to be a total of 7 invasion cards, and we're going to start adding invaders and adding treasures and possibly adding more artifacts to the board. And we're now starting to get to our very first invader who can cause us a lot of problems, starting with the Sorcerer, who's going to force us to start exploiting things when we encounter them. So now that we've drawn all 7 of our cards that we need to start adding cards to the realm for, we're going to notice that we have drawn 1 card that we don't have a token to place on the board. Anytime we draw a card that doesn't have a token to place on the board, we're going to ignore that card and we're going to draw another card to replace it, and we're going to end up getting some fairies instead of, which would probably was not good. I would have definitely preferred to have the treasure, but you get what happens. And not only that, we also have our very first creature, which is going to have a power which is going to activate every single round during the invasion turn, which is the Marauder power, which means this Raven is going to randomly be flying all over his realm, making her much more difficult to track down and defeat. So starting with the Mouse Soldiers, we're going to roll to figure out exactly where they're at. They are, all 4 of them are going to appear in Area 2 here with the Valkyrie. The next thing is we got a Silver Figurine Treasure, which is also going to appear in Area 2 with the rest of these villains. Next thing we have is we have an Autumn Fairy. They're going to all appear in Area 4 normally, but since unfortunately we have a Dark Castle that's appeared in this area, we're actually going to put all those fairies in that area. And I also made a mistake with the mice. All of these mice are also going to appear in this area with the Black Castle. I would not have even rolled for them at all. They automatically appear in the Black Castle, now that the Black Castle's been added to the board. So the same thing is going to happen for the Sorcerer, who's going to appear inside the castle. This Golden Buddha artifact is actually going to appear over here in Area 1 with the treasure token right there. Next thing we have is the Dwarf, who's also going to appear in the castle. And then finally, the Raven is also going to spawn in the castle, making life difficult for our heroes. It's now time for our players to activate, and things are looking pretty grim for our heroes. This Silver Kingdom is going to look like it's going to cause us a lot of problems very quickly. So we're going to start with the Sugar Plum Fairy, and the first thing she's going to do is she's going to exploit 1 movement, and she's going to come over here into Area 2 where the Black Castle happens to be, and she's going to send her 2 Mighty Knights who have given her the power of combat to go raid the castle and tear the Black Castle down, destroying the Black Castle and removing it from the game. After that, we're going to use our courage, both of our courages, to defeat 2 of these goblins and remove them from the game, so the track doesn't get too high on us too quickly. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of gold to bribe this goblin to leave the kingdom, to let him know that maybe having a little bit of gold is more important than staying around to protect the kingdom for a Dark Overlord who doesn't really care about his pay and benefits at all. Then we're going to use a little bit of magic to go ahead and blast some of these fairies away, removing them from the board. And then we're going to use our quickness and our swiftness to hunt down the other 2 fairies and capturing them, removing them from the board. And finally, we're going to use our last bit of magic to hunt down and figure out exactly where this treasure happens to be, gaining us some more gold and ending the Sugar Plum Fairy's turn. Our heroes are now in damage control mode because they realize that the Fairy Kingdom and the Silver Kingdom are very, very close to being overwhelmed by all these invaders very, very quickly, and we don't even have all the artifacts we need to defeat the dark villains when they appear on the board. So the first thing that Robin Hood is going to do is they're going to exploit their knowledge on the weaknesses of Kappas to go ahead and defeat the first one. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to fight one of these raccoon guards in combat, defeating him, activating our Berserker Axe, which is going to refresh our combat token. We're then going to use our Cunning to go ahead and defeat a second one of these guys. And then finally, we're going to use our final combat token to defeat the final guy, removing him from the board, meaning there are no invaders left in the Cherry Blossom Kingdom. We're then going to exploit some of our swiftness to go ahead and move over into this area. And we're going to exploit some more swiftness to go ahead and move over into this area. Hopefully, meaning at the start of the next turn, we'll be set up to possibly grab an artifact, possibly grab a treasure, which will help us hopefully start getting some more powerful items by visiting the town. It's now up to the Nutcracker to figure out where he can do the most assistance to prevent the most damage to the kingdoms. We know there's 10 monsters here in this area, which means that this track is going to go up to all the way up to 19 at the start of the next turn. We know there's 6 monsters left in this area, which means this kingdom is also going to go all the way up to 19. That does mean that we are going to summon one of the Dark Lords for one of these kingdoms, and possibly we're going to summon both the Dark Lords for both of these kingdoms if we don't do enough damage control very, very quickly. Looking at our odds, we see that there is pretty much nothing we can do to stop the Dark Lord from spawning in the Silver Kingdom, but we can stop the Dark Lord from spawning in the Fairy Kingdom. So what we're going to do is we're going to exploit our magical talent, which is going to allow us to travel to another realm. And then once we arrive in the next realm, we're going to go ahead and use some abilities to help us start defeating some of these bad guys and hopefully bring down the count of all these villains. And I actually want to arrive in this area right here. And while hopefully I'm going to get very lucky with some very, very clever use of my talents and some use of some card play, again, if I get very, very lucky. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to exploit some of my swiftness to defeat this sprite. Now remember, every time you defeat a sprite, you're going to gain 1 gold, and I have the card out as a nice reminder in case I forget. So now that we defeat the sprite, we're going to go ahead and we're going to gain 1 gold. We're then going to exploit 1 swiftness, and we're going to move over into this area right here, where we're going to exploit some of our combat prowess to defeat one of these dwarves. Remember, when you defeat a dwarf, much like a sprite, they give you 1 more gold. So that brings us up to 2 gold, so if we can at least survive for another round, possibly we can go shopping to get some extra things. Finally, we're going to exploit some more of our combat prowess to defeat one of these goblins. We're going to remove it from the board, and we have 1 swiftness left, which we're going to go ahead and exploit to go ahead and move into the city. So hopefully, at the start of the next round, maybe we can go shopping if we survive that long. All of our heroes' talents are now going to refresh, and now we can move on to the next invasion phase, and hopefully, maybe we're going to be able to survive 1 more round before all these invaders destroy one of the realms. So it's now time to start the invasion phase. The first thing that's going to happen is the Silver Kingdom. Since we have 10 invaders currently in the realm, we're going to go up from 9 all the way up to 19, which means one of the Dark Overlords are now going to enter the board. And of course, the Dark Lord is going to join the party over at the Black Castle with the rest of his invaders, trying to make our life much more difficult. So the next thing we have is we're going to have the Fairy Kingdom, where we have 1, 2, 3 invaders currently inside it. So we're going to go from 13 all the way up to 16. Not quite enough to stop the Dark Lord from appearing in the realm. Since there's no castle, we're going to roll the die, and they're going to appear in Area 6 on the board. So we're going to add them right where the artifact is. Hopefully, we're going to draw the final artifact so we can defeat that invader. Otherwise, we are going to be in a lot of trouble very, very quickly. And then finally, the Cherry Blossom Kingdom is not going to advance at all because there's no invaders currently in that area. Only thing left to do is to draw the invasion cards. First, before we do that though, the Raven's actually going to move because they do have a power that occurs before invaders enter the realm. So the Raven, as the advanced scout, is going to fly off over into Area 2. Now we can draw the rest of the cards. And remember, we're going to draw 7 cards. And we're going to add these invaders, these treasures, and hopefully that final artifact to the board. Otherwise, things are going to get very difficult for us very, very quickly. It looks like luck was not on our side. We actually had one small, minute chance that we could have pulled out a win. Possibly if things would have went in our favor, if we would have got the correct artifact. The artifact for the Dark Lord of the Silver Kingdom, we had a very slim chance that we could have still won. Because if we could have got the final artifact, we could have defeated the final Lord of Darkness in this realm. Remember, when you defeat a Lord of Darkness, all their villains or all their invaders with them are defeated at the same time. And the Lord of Darkness actually is not part of the Black Fortress. He's not part of it, and I actually should have rolled for his location. But I just stick him there just because it looked kind of funny because I saw how quickly I was about to be defeated anyways. But back on point, if we could have got the right artifact, I potentially could have came back to the Silver Kingdom, potentially could have gotten all 3 artifacts, and possibly could have defeated this Dark Lord of Darkness, which would have saved this realm and possibly kept us still in the game for 1 more round. But since this track is currently on 19, we can't defeat the Lord of Darkness. We're able to start the next turn. We're going to go up at least 1 point, plus any more points we may get just for all the other invaders on the board, so we know we have completely lost the game. Now, we do have 1 small other chance, possibly if 2 of these cards that we draw here from the top of the deck happen to give us the Flying Pig, we can at least take out some of these invaders, but we still wouldn't win the game. So we pretty much know that we've managed to completely lose the game. So we had a really challenging game, but it looks like we made the wrong decision by deciding to go to this realm. What we should have done is we should have went to this realm and done something to try to save this realm, or at least minimize the damage sooner. This does go to show you just how challenging 12 realms can definitely be when you throw in everything such as the Black Fortresses, you throw in the Petrified Invaders, and even though we had access to the extra buildings, we still lost the game. Hope you enjoyed this video playthrough for 12 realms. It was kind of a big defeat on the part of our heroes, but maybe next time we'll get our revenge. Now remember the special actions we can do on our turn. is not special, so let's correct myself.